Hi.
My name is Virginia Hoff, and I wanted to listen to what he has to say. I've heard him before. This is my grandson and great-grandson.
You guys fans too, or interested? Yeah. Is there anything particular about Ron Paul that has your interest as opposed to other candidates?
I think that he has the right idea to get back to the basics. The Constitution is something that has to be taken care of. We're not doing it now, and we need to do it.
I'm Phil Funn. It's Phunn, and I'm with my campaign Where, and we've been doing this for 12 years out of Florida, and this is my third time presidential election, third different cycle, and it gets more interesting each time. It really does.
Tell me a little bit about the energy of a Ron Paul event for sales versus the other candidates.
Well, it's by far been the best attended of all the different rallies I've done, and I've been here since last Monday. He's the only one that's been smart enough to put it in big enough halls. I don't know if some people tell me it's because if you only have 20 people and 30 media, it looks bad if you have a big room and there's just a small amount of people. But if you cram them in a small room, it looks like you're getting overflowing crowds.
Anybody here supporting Ron Paul? All right, I guess I won't have to do my undecided speech. I'm married. I live in Kentucky. I have 3 boys, and I sent my first boy off to college this year. And everybody worries about their kids. They want to make sure they're going to choose wisely, show up for those 8 a.m. classes, and do the things they should. And so I heard about this test that these parents devised for their kid to decide whether their kid was going to turn out okay. So the parents hid in the closet, and they put some money out, they put the Bible out, and they put a 5th of bourbon. And they thought, well, if he took the money, he'd be a businessman. If he picked up the Bible, maybe he'd be a clergyman. And if he picked up the bourbon, who knows what he was going to turn out to be. So they hid in the closet, and they watched, and their son came in, he picked the money up, held it up to the light, stuck it in his pocket. Picked up the Bible, flipped through it, stuck it under his arm. Picked up the bourbon, uncorked it, took a swig, and stuck it under his other arm and marched off to his room. The dad was in the closet with the mom, and the dad said, "It's worse than we thought. He's going to be a politician." Now, why is it that politicians seem to be the butt of all these jokes? Congress has a 9% approval rating right now, which I think might be exaggerated and be more approval than they deserve. And yet we re-elect 95% of them. So there is a paradox there somewhere. But I think young people see through this. Our campaign, my father's campaign, has energized these young people because young people see through the BS. Young people are cynical. They look at reality TV and know it's not true, but they look at the evening news and say, how is it so different than reality TV? So the young people have gone to the internet. They've found their own truth. They've learned to question and look at both sides of things. And I think the young people see something that is different here. They don't see the traditional politician. They don't see the politician who will say anything to get elected. They see, as T.S. Eliot wrote about putting on a face to meet the faces you will meet. That's one thing you'll never see from Ron Paul. What you see is what you get, and what you see is the honest to good truth. There's only one candidate that the soldiers trust. The active duty soldiers have given more money to Ron Paul than all of the other candidates combined. These are the people who fight for their country. These are the young men and women who volunteered and who fight and risk their lives on a daily basis. These are the people who trust Ron Paul to be their commander-in-chief. Without further ado, I'd like you to welcome my father, Ron Paul.
And thank Rand for that very nice introduction. He stole one of my issues. I do talk about a lot of young people. sometimes people think, well, why are you talking about just young people? Aren't there other age groups that support you too? But when I look out here, I don't see anybody over 40 in this crowd. This issue of age is something else, because I'm a little bit over 40, and but why isn't it young people identify with the issue of liberty? I think there's a lot of burden being dumped on them right now, and they're starting to realize that this is happening. But I think there are two groups. I think there's a lot of individuals that have come from a different age group, but they haven't been necessarily involved in politics constantly, but they're rather frustrated with it. There's been a group that have been independent-minded. There's been a group that have sort of dropped out. They haven't been voting. Some never voted before, but finally feel energized. And that group, which I call a remnant, they believed, they understood, they knew what America was all about, but they've been disgusted with both parties as they come together and pretend they're going to say one thing, they say one thing, and they do something else. And as Rand pointed out, young people see through this rather quickly. But I think it's a combination of bringing not only different age groups together, but people from different walks of life. This is the wonderful thing I think is all about freedom. Because freedom brings us together because we believe in freedom. We don't come together because we want to impose our lifestyles on somebody else. We want to come together to make up our own minds about how we want to run our own lives.
They'll come back to me a couple weeks later after they connect with this message and say, hey, you're right. The media really does not give him a fair shake. I'm like, yes, I know. Do you think I was lying the whole time? You know? It's,
yeah, I mean, even coming from the media, I would agree with it. Like, look in the, in the straw poll, when he came in second behind Michelle Bachmann by like a very small margin.
Yeah, like 1% of 1%.
Yeah.
They barely even mentioned.
He got hardly any mention. She got all the attention.
And everything's back on Santorum now. It's like,
Yeah,
And as Iowa voters, 1 week, everybody's like, oh, Iowa's a big deal. Iowa says the way the country's going to vote and all this stuff. Next thing you know, Ron Paul's leading the polls. Well, it doesn't really count if Ron Paul wins. That's insulting to us as Iowans. It really is. Like, that's how I take it anyway. So it makes it feel like our votes don't count just because we're choosing a different candidate. Aren't we supposed to make the choices, or is the media supposed to make the choices for us?
And what do you do for a living?
I actually am in my last semester of school. I'm going to be a teacher. I was in the Army for 7 years before that. So.
yeah, where's Rand?
He just waved at me.
Thank you, Rand. Thanks, Rand.
Hey, Rand, you bought my mocha in Kentucky. Take care. No bumpers. What's up with that?
A few minutes ago, we just had to wait for his driver.
Yeah.
I like it now.
Do you mind telling me your thoughts about seeing this event today?
Oh, I loved it. I agree with everything that he has to say. It's just amazing, actually. And I remember how the government was telling us it was going to be a great thing to start going over seas and being infiltrated there and having them come over here. And it really, ever since then, has been a downward spiral. And we're ready. It's past tense. We need somebody like him back in. He's got his strong views, and he's young. He's my son, too.
Well, I believe Ron Paul is the only true potential for this country as of right now. Everyone else, seem to follow the status quo. And I've never felt more compelled to vote for a candidate than now. Never, not once.
He's 25, and this is the first time he's going to vote. And he's in college, he goes to school, he's politically involved, he's well-educated and well-versed on it. It's exactly like what Ron Paul said. There's a lot of youth out there that do educate themselves today, and they know the difference now. I have a 22-year-old son that could care less about politics, and he is so involved now, and he is so eager to get the word out there for Ron Paul. It's just amazing, actually.